Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cerebral Conversations, Episode 3. This is Cerebral Conversations on disability liberation and integration. I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
So, Ron, Episode 3, how was your week?
My week was pretty awesome. I watched the Blackhawks. This is my introduction to hockey. We had the epic return of Beefy Crunch Burritos. And we have new neighbors, people.
It's true. So, the Chicago Blackhawks, which is, my bread and butter. I'm a big hockey fan. Loving it. We're on like a 3-game winning streak.
Yeah.
We lost to the LA Kings last night. That's okay. Now, these Beefy Crunch Burritos, they are a thing at Taco Bell, and it's a burrito with like nacho cheese, sour cream, and spicy Fritos in it. And usually I don't even eat fast food. I don't like giving them money, but this burrito is like the second coming of burritos.
This man will eat these burritos every single day for the rest of his life if he has the opportunity.
And like the thing about it is that like I know that it's crappy food that I shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
But I can't help it. And I know that it's like that it has probably like Monsanto all over it. Just all over it. But it just tastes so good. Now, I get mine without the crappy Taco Bell meat in it. I get mine with beans instead.
Right.
But, I mean, we've eaten a lot of burritos this week.
We really have. And it's interesting because we'll just randomly say, I want burritos, and one of us will pay for them, and we have 6 of them.
Well, like, the problem is that we have to actually find someone to usually go pick up the burritos for us. And I'm not as trusting as you are, because you'll be like, here's my card, just go get it. I'll be like, no, no. Go take me to get the burritos, or I'll give you money and owe you, or whatever happens. They're just like, we need burritos, here's my card, go do it.
Go do it now.
So there's that going on. We have 2 new neighbors in our building. One which I haven't met. The other one's actually a kid I've known since I was 5 years old.
His name is Riley, and the person that CJ hasn't met is named Rick.
Yeah, so it's always kind of cool to have new neighbors, and it's especially cool to watch Riley have his first accessible apartment. I've been a part of his life for a long time, and so kind of seeing him take his first steps towards independence has been really cool.
And he also reminds me of when I was a child, because I had a lot of the same obstacles as he does as far as breaking away from the psychology of being so dependent on your parents. So it's interesting for me because I can kind of see where he could head and where he is, and I'm hoping I can direct him in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you're going to be a really good role model for sure.
Yeah.
So, I got to tell you, I've had a pretty interesting week.
I heard about this.
Pretty much yesterday is just one of the strangest days I've ever had. Other than that, it's been mostly just hanging out with Ron. We've been doing a lot of research for today's show and stuff like that, but yesterday is just one of the weirdest days I've ever had. So, I wake up and, I have a text message from my friend who's like, hey, I'm really excited to hang out with you today, my friend Chris. And then he also, take me in a Facebook post. So I just woke up and I'm feeling really good. Well, my AC unit here in my apartment went out, so I have the maintenance guy fixing that. Turns out that it's a much bigger deal, and you can't fix it right away. So I have no air conditioning. Not the end of the world, no big deal. Then all of a sudden I get a call from my dentist because I had my teeth cleaned last week, and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, you're not insured anymore." So
Oh.
so I called my mom because I thought I was listed as a disabled dependent, and she's saying that I'm not all of a sudden.
Hmm.
And so I just found out like that I don't have insurance, and I have some like pretty hefty bills coming my way, which is a common problem among the disabled. Is that one of the reasons that we're also kept into poverty is that we keep incurring medical debt because we need basic medical care. I mean, for me, it was cleaning my teeth. I wouldn't even gone to get my teeth cleaned if I knew I wasn't insured.
And we can't work to get on any type of work insurance. So the public insurance that I'm on, no one takes. So I have to go to like the worst clinic in Rockford for any type of medical care that I need.
Yeah, and it
Which,
looks like I'm gonna have to be going on there.
yeah,
Which I mean, nobody takes it, so that means my access to medical care is gonna significantly drop, especially if I need any sort of wheelchair, a new set of crutches. Which I mean, I generally go through a pair of crutches like one to every 2 years,
hmm,
so I'm probably gonna be due. I would say within the next couple months.
yeah, it's definitely a strange situation to believe one thing and then be told another without any prior notice whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just really weird. I don't really understand a lot of this. Well, and so the reason that I was going to hang out with my friend Chris is that I have a class reunion coming up from the pastoral school I went to, and so I wanted to go to thrift stores to try to pick up a suit because I don't own any suits.
He's a pretty big deal, people.
Um,
He needs a suit.
I need a suit. So we like go to Goodwill, and also like I want to pick up some button ups too, because to be honest, I haven't really invested in clothes in about 3 or 4 years. So like a lot of my button ups were straight up getting like threadbare. Like I remember I put on one of my favorite shirts a couple weeks ago, and like the whole sleeve tore off.
Oh my.
So I was like, I probably should get some clothes. So we like go to the Goodwill, and they just don't have anything in my size. And then we go to this huge Salvation Army that we have here in the city, and I tried on like 8 different um, suit jackets, and none of them fit. And I I went through this really just kind of weird mind game because I knew that if I was able-bodied, I could probably find something in my size. Because part of the thing is that okay, like I have like I have really broad shoulders and like a well-defined chest, and so but also I'm like 5'1",
Yeah.
so I'm really short. So I would find stuff that fits, but then like the arms would be too short, and also like trying to find dress clothes and just trying to find clothes in general, like as a crippled dude is just hard. It's hard to find stuff that fits.
And you have to also consider that you're sitting down a majority of the day. So you have to find stuff that doesn't hike up or get too tight or anything like that. And the length of clothes is difficult because, like CJ said, some of us have longer legs, some of us have broader shoulders. It's just a fiasco.
Yeah, like actually a few months ago, I had like a pair of jeans rip on me, so I had to throw away a pair. So I needed another pair of jeans. I went into a thrift store. They didn't they didn't have like any sort of accessible changing room, and besides, like I don't want to spend like 45 minutes trying on one pair of jeans. So usually what I do is I just pick in my size and length, and I rock and roll with it. Well, like the particular jeans that I was wearing yesterday, they're skinny jeans, and like and being a crippled man and trying to fit into skinny jeans is insane. Um, Not only do I wear AFOs, but like I have like atrophied calf muscles, but then I have like just insane childbearing thighs. I got like mama thighs because that's where all my leg muscles are. Like that's how I get walking. So sometimes I wear skinny jeans and I just feel like a bag of garbage. So I was so uh so I was like trying on different clothes and like I was making jokes with my friend Chris, and it just so happens that like these two ladies were like using the changing room. So I just like sat outside of the changing rooms, just trying on the shirts, uh, and like sitting in this folding chair. Well, then like one of the ladies comes out and she starts chatting up my friend and I and just asking us a bunch of questions and just being really friendly. And I didn't really think of anything of it. And she's like, "Oh, like yeah, that sure looks nice on you." Da 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 da. And so eventually, like her friend leaves the changing room, and I go to look in the mirror with one of the shirts that I'm wearing, and I'm like, okay. And so we like come out, and then she like kind of stops us, and she starts talking to my friend, and she's like, "Hey, like maybe we should go out to a movie." And my friend just cannot handle awkward situations at all. so so then so then me being a good friend, I jump in there and I'm like, oh, his wife probably wouldn't like that because he got married about a year ago. So then like she shuts down and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even notice that. Well, then she turns to me and was like, well, what about you? And I'm waiting for my friend to jump in and be like, oh yeah, let's like do something.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. No, see, so then like I have to give this lady my number, especially since like I was, like we were telling her that like like we went to the same pastoral school. Like she knew that I was a former reverend, all that business. So I can't. And she like laid this like kind of guilt trip of like, yeah, I'm really lonely. I don't have a lot of friends. I don't have people I hang out with. So I can't be like no. Like I can't just shut her down. So then I have to give this lady my number. Now like the really sad part is that she was probably near 40. And I think she may have been either a former heroin addict or a heroin addict in recovery because she had some major scars going up her arms and she looked like she was like, she like had trouble with cellulitis, which is pretty common with heroin users. And also, she was like wearing a fentanyl patch, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a really heavy painkiller. It's a heavy opiate. So I was just like, so I was like second choice for a date at Salvation Army from what may have been a 40-year-old heroin addict. Really nice lady, but I was just like, oh, I just felt all sorts of awkward from that. So it was just an awkward day for me.
That makes the ego feel real good, I imagine.
Yeah, because I just feel like my loss of cheese since I've shaved the beard. Yeah. So other than that, it's been a really interesting week. I've been contacted through this guy who is interested in making a comic book character based off of me. So I might be helping him in these upcoming months write a comic book based off of me. Because he hit me up on Facebook. We're part of a discussion group on Facebook, and he kind of hit me up because he's been seeing some of the things that I've been writing about disability liberation and integration. And he was like, yeah, I went to Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and I saw some people in wheelchairs, and that got me thinking that there really isn't a lot of prominent comic book characters who are in wheelchairs other than Professor X, and then there was one instance where Batman like broke his back and he was in a wheelchair. So he's like, would you like to make a comic book like based off of you? So we have some really cool ideas that I really don't want to go into detail on the show yet, but be prepared. If this all works out, it's going to be a pretty epic comic book.
I'm I'm looking forward to it, my friend.
Yeah, so that kind of segues into this week's topic, which is the portrayal of disability in the media.
Yeah, this was a really interesting topic to research because I did not know there were so many different types of portrayals available in the media of disability and specifically of people in wheelchairs.
So, what was your first memory of disability within the media?
My first memory was actually an episode of Saved by the Bell where Zach Morris finds this girl attractive at like one of the clothing stores that they all go to, and she's sitting behind a counter, so he doesn't realize she's disabled or in a wheelchair until they go on the date. And it's really interesting because Zach has to deal with those emotions as he finds out that she's disabled, and he has to deal with his perception of disability and what she's telling him about disability and how she views it.
You know, I was actually thinking about that episode of Saved by the Bell like all throughout this week.
Yeah.
That was one of my first memories, but actually my very first memory that I can think about, because as I was going over the notes for the show last night, I was kind of thinking about that. Okay, do you remember the BK Kids Club?
No.
Okay, like the BK Kids Club was like just kind of this like club where like you could join it and like get a membership card, and like if you went to BK enough, you would get like free kids meals and stuff. Well, so they were part of like a lot of the commercials that would push the kids meal and stuff. Well, they had a character in a wheelchair whose name was Wheels,
Oh.
and that was like the first time I really like was like, oh, there's like other kids like me. That's kind of cool, I guess. I remember I just felt really weird about it. I just was like, why are they naming him Wheels? Like, doesn't he, like, that can't be his name.
That's kind of self-patronizing in itself because, like, you're just labeling the person by what you see and not by his or her personality.
Yeah, like, I remember in high school, like, people would always call me Wheels and stuff, or, like, I would have teachers that were, you know, trying to be, like, trying to make me feel special. They would call me, like, Speedy Gonzalez and stuff like that, and I was just like, I have a name.
Right.
I'm a person. I have one of the best grades in the class.
It's all about identity, people.
Well, that's what it's really about, and it was interesting doing a lot of research for the show. And if you guys haven't checked out a review that we did on the movie Storytelling earlier this week as bonus content, I highly suggest it. It's on our Facebook page, because that was one of the most interesting, I think, and honest portrayals of disability that I've seen in film, especially regarding kind of sexuality and dating. But I think one of the most prominent films in regards to disability was the Daniel Day-Lewis film My Left Foot.
Right. And this film is about a writer who has cerebral palsy in Dublin, Ireland, like in the 40s, I think. And the story basically portrays his struggle with his version of cerebral palsy and trying to fit into the family with his brothers and sisters. And the thing that really struck me about it was his relationship with his mom. Because, like all mothers, she wants to be protective of him, but he wants to fight for his independence. So there's a little bit of a power struggle in that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting film. I mean, he only had fine motor function in the toes of his left foot, so he would, on a typewriter, type out whole novels and books. And it really showed that he was a person, but also that he had a lot of faults because he was a heavy alcoholic. You know, he was pretty brash.
And also, he craved a romantic relationship, which is something that a lot of people with physical disabilities deal with because that's one aspect of our lives that we feel should be quote unquote normal. And when people don't reciprocate that same feeling, we kind of tend to go into a self pity about it, I feel like.
Absolutely, it's I think that's one of the kind of the most underlying things that I see within able bodies' understanding of disability. I mean, how often do you and I hear, "Oh, I know this guy in a wheelchair, and he has a job, and he's married to an able-bodied woman."
Yeah. It's like, well, that's great for him, but I'm Ron and he's CJ, and we're not the same as that guy.
And also, you know, like our like worth isn't dependent upon being in a romantic relationship.
But a lot of what we see in our culture kind of tells us that romance is a very important part of life. So we tend to overemphasize that desire in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, because I think it's kind of if I can just be in a relationship, then people will see that I'm a normal person.
Right.
So another big thing, big portrayal of disability in recent years has been two characters on the animated show South Park, Jimmy and Timmy.
Yeah, Jimmy and Timmy in the cripple fight.
Yeah. Now I have to tell you that episode came out when I think I was in about 8th grade or maybe like going into freshman year of high school, and for years and years I would have to deal with this. People like yelling "Timmy" and "Cripple Fight" and "Whoa, what a great audience!"
That's okay because I often have to deal with, can I use your chair to go to class because it's faster?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you can't. Get your butt in class.
Well, and like the really funny part is that I know that episode in particular had really had a lot of backlash from the disability community, but I found that that particular episode just hilarious.
Yes, the biggest thing I think I took away from that episode is I was so relieved that they thought it was okay to joke about disability.
Exactly.
Like, it's alright to tell a joke.
Yeah.
The we're not gonna melt. It's not gonna hurt most of our feelings. Life will go on. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because I really feel like a lot of able-bodied able-bodied people who are well-meaning, um, like feel very awkward if we ever mention a realistic view of disability or any sort of like negative view of like our lives.
Yeah, like
Especially in a joking manner.
yeah, like for CJ and I, we use the word crippled a lot. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I will catch people looking at me like, why did he just call himself crippled? And it's not a bad thing as long as we own it.
Yeah, and personally, that's the term that I'm most comfortable with because I feel like it's the least personifying, and I find the word crippled to be very just empowering. But also, like like I shared on my my Facebook page the story of that woman hitting on me as second choice in Salvation Army,
Mm-hmm.
and it was meant to be funny, and then I had like 4 or 5 people be like, "Oh, you need to look at it this way, and it's okay," and stuff like that. I'm like, and then I had to write, I'm like, "You people realize that this was meant to be funny. Like, it's okay to laugh about this stuff."
People assume because our disability is so serious that we have to be serious all the time. And there are some people with physical disabilities that don't joke, they take everything personally, they're offended. But for people like CJ and I, if you joke with us, we like you so much more than if you're just plain robotic, you're afraid to talk. We don't like that. So,
Well, I think people forget how empowering comedy is, and as a wannabe stand-up comic in quotations, um, I think people don't realize that when you make fun of something, for instance, you saw this a lot with with uh, with international tragedies, is when comics make fun of it, it takes the power away from it.
and also something that I can speak to is like when black comedians make fun of being black. They make fun of the N word or cultural stereotypes that other groups might use, and it takes away some of the power of those stereotypes and gives the black community ownership of who they are.
Absolutely, and I think that the overall goal, and I think one of the goals of our show is really kind of take away the sacred cows of disability.
Definitely. Like I personally feel as though we need to show this side of us so that people understand that disability is not the same for everyone. And there are people that are normal. We just sit down because it's cool.
So another great comedic role portrayal of disability that I've often dealt with some of the backlash of it, of kind of people's perceptions, is the character of Stevie on the show Malcolm in the Middle, which is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, this was very interesting because before CJ mentioned it, I had no idea about Malcolm in the Middle, and he was surprised because he thinks I should like everything that he likes,
You
and I
should.
don't.
You should.
um, but the thing about Stevie that I took away was he reminds me of the classic disabled kid in the sense that he's so excited to be around able bodied people, and his mother is like the, the classic disabled mom. She's super overprotective. She doesn't want him to breathe wrong. She doesn't want him to get hurt. She doesn't want him to leave without her. And that's something that a lot of us, as we grow older, we begin to resent that in parenting.
Yeah. I think for me, I dealt with a lot of crap because of this character because everyone just kind of assumed that, oh, that's what CJ's life is like, and things like that. In the earlier seasons with Stevie, you kind of see that kind of like sympathetic role a lot, and then kind of as they grow into teenagehood, he kind of has a bit more of a comedic role. One of the things that's really interesting is that I really felt like throughout the entire show is that Stevie's friendship with Malcolm was really never defined outside of like Malcolm kind of feels this weird sort of obligation to be his friend.
Yeah, like the and the mother perpetuates that too. Malcolm's mother is like, "You're gonna be friends with that crippled kid, whether you like it or not." And I can just picture like parents across America saying that if their child knows someone who's crippled.
Yeah, actually, okay. So that reminds me of a actual true life story with me in pastoral school. I went to a small pastoral school. It's kind of like a chain of pastoral schools called Master's Commission. And during the first year, we had like a group of guys that wanted to like start this club called the Brotherhood, and like we're basically like we would just be like the best of the best, and we would like, and then I don't know, it was kind of like in a sense like take over like all of the awesomeness of the program, and maybe it's just because like I just come from like a punk rock background, and I was just like this is stupid, and so I remember like during like one of like the planning meetings, I like stood up and was just like this is just stupid and it's wrong and we should just be focusing on other things instead of trying to make ourselves look awesome. Okay, well, it just so happened that my friend Jordan's parents like were visiting from out of town to like see their son, and so I walked out. Like I walked out of the meeting, and then like Jordan comes up to me later and was like, "Yeah, so my parents like felt really bad. They felt like you left because you weren't included." And so then my parents were like, "Jordan, did you make sure to include him and make sure that he felt welcomed?"
Yeah, like I can remember being a kid and like the kid that I went to school with, they didn't really understand like my disability because in my school there was a lot of people with mental issues as well, and the classrooms were pretty close to each other, so they just assumed that I was retarded. And I remember one day this kid said something about like how I looked, and I was like, "Thank you for noticing, douchebag." And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And then the next day, he comes up to me and he says, "My parents want me to apologize because they know I hurt your feelings." I'm like, "You tell your parents that my feelings were not hurt and you are still a douchebag."
I know, like that's one of the most annoying things about douchebag teenagers is like that they actually assume that like that their influence has some sort of control over your emotions. Like somehow, oh, you made fun of me, so now I feel bad about myself. It's like you wear Abercrombie and stupid sweatshop clothes, and you smell like lame cologne.
And when I was in high school, it was the Matrix phase, so everyone wanted to dress like Neo all the time, and it was really stupid, like CJ said.
All right, so speaking of high school,
Yes.
probably one of the most prominent roles involving disability in pop culture today is Artie from Glee.
Oh yeah. Artie from Glee is a really cool character. Um, Artie is in a wheelchair, and he's part of the Glee band from Glee. And I feel like this is the most socially accurate portrayal of people with disabilities in the media because he's not treated any differently just because of his disability. Like, the group accepts him for just being Artie.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the show, and I've only seen a couple episodes. And I watched a couple episodes just to kind of get a feel of the character. I don't know if it's necessarily an accurate portrayal. I don't know. It's weird, and maybe some of it's just because like I have some baggage regarding that character because I had like the first season of Glee. Now keep in mind I had like a 5-inch beard at this point, like hair down to my chin,
We go back to the beard, people, as always.
and people were like, "Oh yeah, you look just like Artie," and I was like why? Because I have glasses and I'm in a wheelchair, and it kind of took a while to look, yeah, but also like I've watched a couple episodes. I watched one where like this Asian girl was kind of into him, and he dealt with a lot of insecurity regarding that, and that was cool. And then there was this one where like for some reason he couldn't go to one of the performances because they didn't have a ramp, and so they were trying to raise money for a ramp. And then there was this like whole like song, and they were like, "Come on, Artie," and like Artie was really prominent part of that singing, and it just kind of felt, I don't know, kind of felt like a little forced and a little weird to me. I think overall it's a positive portrayal. It shows a lot of humanity and just that he's an everyday high school student.
Yeah.
I think I would have been happier if it was maybe played by an actual person with disability. Um, and like that's a really common thing is that a lot of like the roles regarding disabled are played by able-bodied people, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. Um, Being that I think good actors should get good parts, and so if you're a disabled actor, you should be the best.
Right. And I guess for me, the thing that I really liked about Article was the fact that they did include him, they did raise money for a ramp, and he was part of the main scenes a lot of the time. And I felt like that was different than the typical show that we see where the disabled person is more like a side actor or just in the frame, rolling by.
Yeah. So that kind of brings up one of the most interesting media portrayals of disability is the reality show that did one season on Sundance last year, Push Girls. And actually, I just found out last night that it just got picked up by AMC for a second season, and the season premiere was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Now, Push Girls is interesting. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it.
I originally did not like the show. Like, I told CJ that the show was too over the top, and I just didn't like it because I felt like a lot of the portrayals aren't realistic, and I felt like their target audience was teenage girls, so I felt as though it would harm like a teenage girl who's not rich or doesn't have access to all the um, services and independence that these girls have. But as I watched more of the show, I saw that they tackle a lot of relevant topics like relationships with able bodied persons, having children if you're disabled, um, dealing with the disability from a psychological standpoint. Like one of the girls is bound and determined to walk, and it also shows that the wheelchair doesn't have to stop you from doing what you did or what you did before or doing what you want to do now.
Yeah, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this show. One thing that I do worry about is that, and I often see this uh, just in my everyday life, is that if somebody sees one person who's in a wheelchair, they assume that that it's the same experience for everyone. Um, so three out of the four main characters are paraplegics. The fourth character, Angela, a former model, is a quadriplegic, and then they also have like a fifth um, cast member. I should say cast member because it's not. It's a reality show.
Right.
A fifth cast member named Chelsea, who is a paraplegic as well. And I really feel like paraplegia is the most socially acceptable disability.
I tend to agree because paraplegia is something that general society is familiar with, and paraplegia occurs because of an accident. They don't have to figure out what's wrong with the person. They automatically assume, well, okay, that person's in a wheelchair, he was in an accident, or she was in a car accident, and they can accept that as opposed to, okay, what did your parents do?
What kind of disease do you
What
have?
kind of disease do you
Can
have?
I catch it?
Are you gonna die?
Yeah.
Things that we often hear.
Um, and as you mentioned, these girls are pretty extraordinary. And like one of the things that I really enjoyed is that like these are all very attractive women. And it's good to see like, hey, like we're not all like wearing sweatpants and stuff. Although it's fun if you wear sweatpants, not hating on you.
Thank you,
Um,
CJ.
but you know, it's good to see like yeah, like one of the things I really appreciate is that they like really do tackle and center a lot of the show around sexuality
Yeah.
and just having sex appeal and things like that. You know, because it is a big part of just the human experience.
I feel like the best way to sum this up is to say that Push Girls is a very powerful tool for empowerment of women in similar situations. I'm just concerned, like I said before, that the standards they set regarding independence are a little too false for the average person, because the average person may not have financial resources to undergo stem cell treatment or enter a program designed to help you learn to walk,
or just have access to a gym, have access to a car. I mean, that's one of my main concerns is that now this pushes the idea of well, I saw the girls on Push Girls like like go down a set of stairs in their wheelchair. Now, having cerebral palsy and having a different center of gravity, having different motor function, like there's no way I could do that.
yeah. Like these girls were balancing the whole chair on the back on their back tires and bouncing in and out of a club and just doing things that normal people in wheelchairs just cannot do and will never do. It's just impossible. So,
Yeah, I mean, I I think that's kind of the overall message. Uh, is is just because there's a media portrayal of disability, it's not so much the media portrayal that we have to worry about. It's how you interpret it. Now, just because you see someone with a disability on TV, that doesn't mean that it automatically transfers to whatever crippled person you see.
or even if you see someone with a disability that drives and has a job and has a wife, that doesn't mean that everybody can drive, have a job, or is at the point in their lives where they're in a relationship. And My biggest message is don't lump us in with everyone you see because we're all different, just like you're all different.
Absolutely. And we've kind of had this episode go longer than we normally do. It's actually, you know, just because this is such a big important topic, and we wanted to give uh, proper time to everything. And really, the crazy part about it is that we've missed a lot of portrayals. For instance, Born on the Fourth of July, The Music Within, Rory O'Shea was here. So, Ron, what are some of your future hopes for media portrayal of disability?
My future hopes are that we see a lot more actors who have disabilities getting these roles if they're qualified because, for instance, I know that the original plan for the character House was to have him in a wheelchair. Well, Fox told the show that they could not do that because of the camera angles, which is understandable. However, I would just like to see production studios and actors work together to make that more possible.
Oh man, I completely forgot about House, which is one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah.
People actually used to call me House in high school because they were just like, okay, he's crippled, he's a genius. I don't know if I'm a genius.
I hate that term.
uh, and he's just incredibly sarcastic and is kind of a d-bag. I was a total d-bag in high school. My future hopes for disability in the media are similar to Ron's. But I think I would like to see uh, roles of disability move outside of the bounds of slapstick comedy regarding disability or characters who are disabled, and a move away from like drama centered around the fact that they're disabled. Like I actually have I was thinking about it like a crazy idea to have like a like movie based around a relationship with a crippled guy or girl and an able-bodied guy or girl, and actually never have them mention or draw attention to the fact of disability,
Right.
but just it's centered around their relationship.
Yes, because I think, like we've touched on, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what a relationship of that dynamic should be like or is like. And I just want people from both sides of the community to sit down and get real about what that is and how it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. So we actually got some feedback from a fan of ours, Jacoby Young, and he would like to hear some thoughts on pain management, and also he would like to hear your thoughts on Jack Kevorkian and assisted suicide.
Yes, well, um,
So first, tackling pain management.
you can probably speak more to this than I can, but pain management is definitely something that I deal with um, infrequently, to be honest, but I do deal with it. And like today, my ankles hurt because it's raining outside, it's humid, and the air pressure affects my joints. So I'm in a bit of pain right now, and CJ can tell you more about his pain.
Yeah. Well, yesterday I did a lot of walking, and so I actually had to sleep on your couch because my AC was broken, and you actually heard me like wailing most of the night because my muscle spasms got really intense.
Yeah.
I also have some pretty significant back pain, and I have I have arthritis in my ankles, um, and so just I would say that my pain levels are pretty high most days. I think that's kind of the roughest part of my cerebral palsy is not so much the effects of cerebral palsy, but it's more of just the pain management. I mean, but some things that I've learned is one is like I have to keep walking. I try to do modified yoga like twice a day. Also, just eating right. You know, like just eating right, having a sleep schedule, and something else I've learned is that my depression is very much linked to my ability to manage my pain. I struggle with bipolar disorder, and if I'm not being healthy about things and keeping a good sleep schedule and eating properly and doing all these things, like I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Um, I've also had a lot of people like ask me about like medical marijuana and stuff like that, and prescription pills. I had a brief time and period where I was addicted to prescription pills. Um, I think like with anything is that first you should try to manage it without any sort of outside chemical at all. Take care of yourself, eat right, all those things. Medicinal marijuana, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I think that if it is used, it should be highly regulated. It should be going towards people with real problems, and that if it's going to be used as a medicine, it should be used as a medicine. Now, being that I volunteer at a alcohol and drug recovery program, I think that even if Illinois does pass their medical marijuana bill, which is coming up, I won't partake just because of the work I do and the people that I influence. It's worth a lot more to me. Um, but let's talk more about your thoughts on Jack Kevorkian and assisted suicide.
Yeah, and it kind of piggybacks off what you said regarding taking every other option aside from chemical aids or medicine that you can. I want people to explore every option possible um, to alleviate pain and get a better quality of life. However, having experienced a mother who had severe pain from cervical cancer for the better part of 6 months, I can tell you that I personally don't have a problem with the assisted suicide because I believe that it's up to the individual whether they want to die or not. Um, I believe that assisted suicide is different than suicide simply because you are seeking the help of someone else and you made the conscious choice to seek someone else and you're not being a coward by just killing yourself without any sort of preparation for your family or understanding of how the process can affect your family. So, to answer Jacoby's question, I definitely agree with assisted suicide, and I believe Jack Kevorkian should have gotten a lot more credit from the medical community for what he was doing at the time.
Awesome. So we're gonna wrap up today's episode. Obviously, went a little longer. Hopefully, you guys don't mind it. Hopefully, we kept you entertained and informed. Ron, why don't you tell them what next week's episode is going to be about?
Next week's episode is going to tackle the idea of breaking away from the people you depend on a daily basis if you need to become more healthy, and the dichotomy within that.
So it's going to be about liberating yourself from dependency dichotomy.
Yes.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. You can like our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/cerebral conversations. We always have a lot of interesting stuff going on. Be sure to contribute and comment. You can send us your feedback also at cerebralconversations@gmail.com. We really need some feedback, and we would love to hear some of your stories. We have some fans that are really excited about the things we're doing, and we just would love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Twitter at Cerebral Convos, and you can follow my personal blog, The Running Surge, at cjcampbell.tumblr.com. Where can they get a hold of you, Ron?
Find me on Facebook at Ron Jackson.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Keep it cerebral, folks.
Peace.